Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Bonnie, and I'll be your host for this webinar. Now, today's topic is about migrating from Elasticsearch to Vespa, and we have a great guest speaker today, Ravindra Harige, co-founder of Searchplex. I'll start with a quick overview of Vespa, and then I'll hand it over to Ravi to talk through some of the challenges people encounter with Elasticsearch and why they migrate to Vespa. Then we'll get into what that process looks like during migration. Now, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So, a little bit about Vespa. Now, Vespa is a platform for building and running real time AI search applications. And this is over various use cases, including RAG, enterprise search, recommendations, and personalization use cases. Some customers you may be familiar with Spotify, Perplexity, Vinted. These are use cases that are related to anything from commerce search and personalization to deep research to chatbots and whatever it is that you need where you have large amounts of data and you need to be able to get accurate results quickly. A few things about the platform that make Vespa unique are it is a unified platform for search and ranking. So you don't have to use separate systems to improve the accuracy of your results. It does seamlessly handle all data types and computations, and that is through our tensor framework. And it computes where the data resides. So this eliminates the unnecessary movement across systems and helps ensure actually real-time availability. Now, that's a little bit about Vespa, but I know Ravi will have some more details for you, really kind of digging into some of the challenges that people see with Elasticsearch, how Vespa solves them, and why people migrate. So, with that, Ravi, what I'll have you do is go ahead and share your screen, and we will go ahead and get started.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks, Bonnie. I'm very excited to be here for this webinar. A little bit about me and my company. I'm based in Netherlands. I have worked over 10 years solving different search and retrieval problems. Since 2021, I founded a company called Searchplex, and we help companies basically make their systems work better. And that could mean building 0 to 1 kind of solutions, or 1 to 100x, or if the company have setups already in production and needs optimizations. Even those kind of work we do. Specifically, we focus only on search and recommendation space, and we have a team of 8 search experts. We are globally distributed. We bring decade plus years of experience, each of us with different skills. Um, and we have solved or helped our customers across different domains. So yeah, that's a bit about me. And to go ahead, it's to set some context. Who do we typically work with? It comes down to really the companies who have search as a core business driver. So the performance of the search directly impacts the conversions and the customer experience. um, and they come typically in two types of or the two phases where they are. So established enterprises who have very mature search most often we see Elasticsearch or OpenSearch or Solar setups in their organization, but they are exploring how to add AI and vector search capabilities within their existing platform. Then we also have customers who are early stage companies. They have proved their value through proof of concept with the choice of their search platform, but now they want to build for future, set the foundations right, and scale to the next phase. um, with that context, let's look at why these companies are exploring migration and migration in general, and then migration specific to Vespa. Quite often, the companies have already understood what Vespa has to offer, but that knowledge comes in at a time where they are also experiencing different issues. So let's go into that reasons. So one common thing that I often come across with is the companies who have Lucene based vector search. They and they are operating at a large scale. They are typically facing some performance issues, and these performance issues, they are tied to some fundamental design and architectural choices that Lucene has made. um, uh, and As you would know, mostly Lucene based system, the fundamental data structure here is segments which are immutable. It has a whole process of segment merging and how that system works. The Lucene has over time is highly optimized for keyword search. So when the vector search needs are on the table, there is approach taken at Lucene level, which basically also operates at immutable segment level. It's not a problem per se when you're at a smaller scale, or if you don't have high update or write needs. But the moment you're moving from a small scale to a large scale setup, that is when you will start seeing issues. Now, when I talk about scale, just to clarify, it could mean scale in terms of queries per second, or the index scale, or the write throughput, which can come in terms of indexing or updating of the index. Um, so at this scale, we see issues which are also reported by our customers, is that they are seeing resource spikes, they're seeing latency spikes in the queries. In fact, even the queries can have inconsistent response times. And these reasons can be narrowed down to why. We talked about immutable segments. Each segment have HNSW graph that gets rebuilt on merges, which triggers cost spikes for updates and reindex workloads. And it also search also requires a cross segment search, which means there are more graphs to traverse, and that can also lead to the latency problems. um, what I explained now is more about the vector search implementation in general in the Lucene based search systems. But these problems, they are they get magnified when we are talking about hybrid search use cases. Um, Especially if we look at Elasticsearch, my hybrid search, they have made it really easy from a developer experience perspective to set up hybrid search. um, you can query keywords and as well as vectors, both from the same DSL and the same query. But again, these queries go through immutable segments, and each segment have two separate indexes, one for keywords, that's inverted index, and another for vector search index. um, you can imagine like these indexes, these graphs are being built and they are being rebuilt whenever the segments are being merged. um, and because these data models are immutable, it means there is no way to make a modification to just one index. So for example, if we are thinking of an e-commerce document which has price and a product vector, for instance, in a typical setup, unless you have made some additional choices, yeah, you are going to have to update the whole document along with the vectors, even if just the prices are going to change. um, which also means when you're running a query, it has to go through two separate indexes to collect the result. Once the results are there, the result merging is happening, and there are different ways exposed to do the result merging. One of them is RRF. Now, it is important to note that even these merging capabilities are paid offering as of today, unless I have missed some announcement about that. So in general, you will see that there are far more moving parts, and these things can get brittle at scale. Um, the other most common situation or need that we see is the need for ranking and re-ranking. Um, Re-ranking or custom scoring or re-ranking is quite a foundational requirement if search is your a core system for your business, and especially in an advanced search system. This setup which you're saying is probably not new if you have implemented a re-ranking with Elastic. It is very common that you have to have an external service that takes top k documents coming out of Elasticsearch, and that gets re-ranked with again another infrastructure which is for machine learning serving. So these two additional components are needed, and then the results get served back. This can be seen as it's flexible. You can do whichever model, whichever, yeah, however you want to implement the re-rank and all of that. But it also brings complexity because you have two additional infrastructure to manage now, components. And you by doing the re-ranking outside, um, you are also losing index time features. um, you're potentially losing the signals that were used for scoring in your retrieval or the first stage ranking, for instance. You can also lose information about query time statistics. All of this uh, will make things better if you have access to it. In lack of it, you can still do some ways to fetch this data with additional effort. but it's just not optimal to do that. So overall, if you're looking to optimize your scoring, your ranking and re-ranking pipeline in a holistic way, that's the bit of challenge with Elasticsearch. Um, what Vespa solves in this particular case is it has a native multi-stage or multi-phase ranking. So the retrieval and there are essentially three different phases of ranking that you can set up within Vespa, and each of these phases can have access to different scoring signals, ranking expressions that you can have from the query, from the data, from the index. So these things stay close to the data and the retrieval system. um, Another very important part is you can also have machine learning models hosted within Vespa infrastructure. So if you are to make use of machine learning models, which can be gradient boosting based models, or other models which you can expose through ONX layer, you can make use of it for ranking and re-ranking purposes. So when you think about this, the ability to do retrieval, different levels of ranking, re-ranking, and use of machine learning models all within single infrastructure, it makes far more easier to optimize and experiment different combinations, different equations or formulas for relevancy and ranking. And you can also you don't have to have a separate infrastructure for services, for machine learning in serving and those things. um, so that's the ranking needs. The another most common thing is if you have to especially the companies who are trying to move to these new capabilities with vectors and hybrid search and so on, you need to have ways to quickly iterate through different changes. um, it is The changes could be in how you calculate scoring, how you do ranking, what are the different ranking, how do you merge your results from in a hybrid search situation and things like that. um, it is much easier in Vespa to do that because Vespa has a concept of ranking profiles. So you can establish multiple ranking profiles that tests different um, setup or configuration of your ranking. And you can select that. For example, you can have one ranking profile for just lexical, one for semantic search, another for hybrid, and maybe you can also have different versions just for hybrid of different configuration and setups. um, all these are ranking profiles are basically files, so it is a part of the application package. You can select all of this just from a query API from of the Vespa client. So you can just, while you're firing a query to Vespa, you can say I want to use or activate profile 1 or profile 2 and so on, one at a time. And then that particular profile gets activated and you have the result coming uh, after processing that logic. So especially if you're in the experimentation and iteration phases, or you want to do a hot deploy of fixes, or even change things in the production, it's very easy to do that because of ranking profiles. um, let's look at a specific domain use case. So typically the customers, if they are from a domain like e-commerce, um, you see quite different use cases coming together. So it is quite common to now expect um, to use keywords, vectors, and filters all in one go. Um, you would have also seen that with Elasticsearch, when we are talking about search and recommendation, it's most often that search is what comes to our mind when we are thinking about Elasticsearch. Um, and for recommendation, it's often a separate system. It doesn't have to be with Vespa. With Vespa, you can use same engine that can serve both search and personalization use cases. That's a huge again infrastructure simplification. You can continue to use ML models again that you can activate for search use cases or for recommendations. That's completely possible. One more thing that again shines through is the real time capability. So you will see in e-commerce specifically, there are a lot of information or attributes that gets changed often, and you need to factor in those information or attributes in your relevancy or ranking calculations. Think of, for example, stock information or the price change. These are dynamic information, and that can influence the customer experience for the search, e-commerce search. Um, with Vespa, you can have this information available almost real time, and you can use that for your ranking, and you can also use that to immediately show or not show products depending on that information. um, Vespa also have a native tensor framework, which supports multi-vector representations. So you can also make use of signals from image, making use of VLMs or image understanding AI, and blend it with the text signals. Together you can basically have a far more capable relevance calculations for your search system. So these things together, they come out really nicely in certain domain. So that's an overview of why we see the interest in Vespa, especially for companies that are considering to move from Elasticsearch, in general, Lucene based search. Um, Now that we have identified different reasons on why companies are exploring migration to Vespa, let's also discuss how to migrate to Vespa. Um, and uh, this basically can apply to any migration in general, what I'm going to go through. But it's good to put that out, to also set some expectation on what you can uh, have with Vespa specifically. um, you always It's better to start auditing your current setup. Of course, it depends who is doing the migration, but in general, you have in an organization, again subject to different organizations and size and shapes, you might have certain dependencies. You already know the sizing of your current Elasticsearch, so you can already plan for how much resources you might potentially need, um, and how you want to deploy it, what are the different components that have to have correct wiring in order to go live. Migration planning itself, there are different things. What are the risks that are involved if you're moving from Elasticsearch to Vespa? Are there any features that you're probably using? Are there any plugins that you have developed for Elasticsearch that maybe doesn't have one-on-one equivalence in Vespa but needs more custom development? um, and how critical are those capabilities? Also, some comparative analysis of like what capabilities are you using today from Elasticsearch, what you want to have, and whether both of them, how do they map to the capabilities that Vespa has to offer. So yeah, there are multiple factors to keep in mind. This audit step is particularly meant to have a clarity around how much work is involved and what you're trying signing up for, basically, um, in terms of team and resourcing. um, the next step, typically you want to identify a scope for your proof of concept. The goal here is specifically how you want to find a functional equivalence to what you have in Elasticsearch. And what that means typically is you identify your data models and the schema that you have in Elasticsearch. Identify what that translation would mean to Vespa. Vespa also has a schema system. You need to identify what are the different types of query DSL are you using in Elasticsearch. There are different clauses, there are different types of queries, and how do they translate to Vespa, for instance. Um, Especially the terminology can differ, so do account for that. For example, aggregation queries are very common in Elastic, but in Vespa you would call that grouping and so on. So there's just different names, but there's a very nice page where you can see the mapping between the two terminologies. We can share that in the resources later. um, but when we are in the with the goal of functional equivalence POC, it is very important to have a representative sample of your production data. So if you let's say you have like 10 types of different data in your search index, it's good to understand what are the ratios and proportion those 10 types of data make up in your production. And if they're all in the same index, try to scale it down, try to create a sample that has a good representation of all those data types or content types. The same process you also want to apply for search queries. So typically you probably are doing like different types of queries depending on who the user is, what they have typed, and so on. There could be Boolean queries, phrase queries, wildcard queries, and whatnot. So try to identify what are the different types of queries that are actually being used in your system with Elasticsearch. What are their ratios, if you can get it, and try to again create a sample set of that. So that's your golden set of like data and queries that you must have. And of course, you need to also think of the business logic. uh, Often we see with our customers that business logic is too tightly um, coupled with the query generation itself. So it's important to sort of separate it out. What is the logic and what part is the query construction? Those two components, if you're separating out, it will make it easier to add only the Vespa query generation part, because then the logic remains the same. So that's your setup for POC. Now, how do you make sure like it is working? So this is the part of benchmarking. Um, we typically do two types of benchmarks. So one is the search quality, and this ties back to the earlier work of functional equivalence. So with search quality, you're trying to get the behavior of your new Vespa system to be same as what you are getting out of your Elasticsearch. So here in this part, in the quality part, you don't care if the latencies are higher or lower, or you're working with large scale data, small scale data. It shouldn't matter. So it's really about you can iterate quickly with a smaller data set. So go ahead with it. Make sure the search quality part is right before you get on to the performance benchmark. Performance benchmark is when you are really scaling and ramping up your index size, you are concurrent queries and users, and for how long can you do that. um, uh, so and you also need to have dashboards for monitoring how's the resource usage at different levels. The goal here is to get a trend line when we are talking about benchmark testing. But how do you know if yeah, what is the frame of reference if you're doing all this only to Vespa? So it is very important that what data set you have identified for testing for the data and the queries, you use that to provision two environments, one for Vespa and one for Elasticsearch, so that when you're running quality search, search quality benchmark, you have a good reference on what you can expect from your current uh, setup with Elastic, and how Vespa compares to that. So your first goal is to get the parity, and of course if there are differences, you need to iterate until the functional equivalence is achieved, the search quality is achieved. You do the same steps also with the performance benchmark. For the performance benchmark, again, it depends on your scale of the system. But if you're running into terabytes of index size and many nodes, it's good to benchmark at 10, 20 or 25 or 50% at different intervals, basically, of your production data. Again, the goal here is to benchmark and compare the performance and also get a trend line, because once you have the trend line, you can extrapolate how it might work at 100%. So yeah, so you essentially keep iterating, compare and iterate until you have come to a good confidence level. So and your team aligned with and accepts the performance criteria you have set up. um, so once those two things are done and you are in a good stage to take it forward, your migration, it's really about rollout and monitoring. um, it's quite common to have dev stage production setup in companies. Some companies probably might call it differently or might have an additional layer in between. That's fine, that's an implementation detail, but it's important to go through those stages. Sufficient allocation of time for testing to each of those phases. um, it is really recommended you have Vespa system in parallel to Elasticsearch in the initial phases, where and then you gradually divert the production traffic to Vespa. Again, there are probably established methods in your organization on how to do this, If not, there are we can help you there. But you never go direct 100% to Vespa in general. You would want to go 10%, 20%, and gradually, or maybe certain customer groups first and then others, and so on. With some criteria, you keep expanding to the complete production scale. um, Aim for zero disruption and quick rollback of Vespa deployment. So if and that is possible if you have good monitoring. You see some things are not behaving the way it should, you should be able to roll back, and you still be able to serve through Elasticsearch setup. So yeah, it's good to have that setup. Continuous monitoring, cannot stress this enough. Unless and until you have full confidence you are in production, you have moved over everything, and still after 2 weeks, everything, all metrics that you're tracking are in good shape and order. uh, Continuous monitoring is very important, and even after that in general. um, Yeah, so really the last part is about the complexity. What does it mean moving from Elasticsearch to Vespa? Is it all easy, or how difficult can it be? Yeah, it's there is no doubt. There is a quite a steep learning curve. If especially if you're coming from Lucene and Elastic world. It's a new stack, there are new components, there's a new terminology to understand how to build the solution with Vespa. Building a solution is one thing. Operate Having operational understanding is another thing. So doing to learn that is also quite some learning experience. um, if you're exploring self-hosted option, it can become complex if you need to set up, let's say, multi-tenancy, or multi-node cluster with dynamic scaling. These things don't come out of the box in self-hosted version, but it can be done if you put enough time and effort to figure it out. So yeah, that's the hard part. But what's the solution? How can you move ahead? What are the mitigation strategy for that? um, I would recommend to try Vespa Cloud, especially in the early stage where you are trying to get parity with Elasticsearch, and you're focused on really getting functional equivalence, or even exceeding the capabilities part. So with the cloud option, you can offload the operational part and focus more on the application building. um, but even to focus on application building, uh, it's still you need some expertise, and that is where I would highly recommend engage with Searchplex with us. We have been working on Vespa and delivering customer projects since 2023. We have, I think, outside of Vespa company, I think it's only us who have far more number of Vespa experts in one organization. So we really have gained those expertise and experience over the year. But besides that, we also have quite comprehensive offering for the Vespa ecosystem. So we have three pillars: migration, build, and optimize. Again, it depends which journey you are in, but you can enter any of this. If you're migrating, I talked about audit. You can do a fixed timeline audit, and then move on to the full migration. Or you can do just building of the application. Or if you're already on Vespa, we can also help you optimize your setup, uh, or support you in any other way. So yeah, that's all about what I had to share in this webinar. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ravi. Now, we do have a few minutes for questions. And for those of you who haven't submitted a question yet, feel free to go to the Q&A button on the right-hand toolbar, and you can add a question. We did get a few questions, so I'll go ahead and start there. So the first question is about the audit services. So how does your pricing work for audit services? How long does this take on average?
Yeah, so Audit is a fixed price, fixed timeline offering we have. It's really meant to be a easy package to get onto if you just want to evaluate how Vespa would work for your specific situation. You will get a plan out of it, an audit report out of it, and it's completely up to you if you want to act on it for a full migration. But basically we flag all the challenges and risks, and give you a more we reduce the risk essentially for a full migration.
Awesome. Okay, another question. You mentioned real time with Vespa. Does it still require refresh operations?
No. So refresh operation is not needed because the data structures are mutable in Vespa. So the information that you want to push and make it available quickly, they are immediately visible. It's really real time, not near real time.
Great. Got another question about your services here. Are you able to do an audit through Searchplex while still evaluating Vespa? So you haven't signed up with Vespa yet, but still curious. Can you still do that? And how long does that take?
Um, Yeah, audit is, as I said, like it's completely independent of how you want to do it, and the typical audit usually takes 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the complexity of the organization.
Awesome. One last question. Again, this one's related to your services, and this is about the benchmark. So you mentioned benchmarking. How much data does that require, and how long does that take?
Yeah, it again depends on the scale of your production setup. If your data is in within GPs, you probably can do the testing with full data set if it's a really manageable scale. Only you have to think about sampling and representative sampling if you are at a yeah higher GBs and terabytes, multi terabytes situation. So and that you can do with 10%, 20%, again depends on the scale, uh, but it's sampling. Yeah.
Great. Well, looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much, Ravi, for joining us and everyone else for joining us as well. Again, you can expect the recording and the slides within 48 hours after the event. Thank
My
you.
Yeah,
Have a
thanks.
great day.